committee meeting on November 1st, 2022 at 6:11. Second item on the list will be the budget for the wastewater treatment center.
So, hello everyone. I'm the superintendent of the wastewater treatment plant. My name is Derek Budsberg. We can jump right into the budget. So, just to start off, I mean, should we go line by line?
You could probably just hit more of the changes or the
Okay. All right.
bigger things.
Let's start off. Operating expenditures for the sanitary sewer maintenance. Equipment is staying the same as last year's 65,000. These are major expenses that include camera equipment for our televising rig, our Vector truck parts and repairs, sewer cleaning equipment, and inspection tools for the sewer crew. The materials for them is relatively the same things like hoses, sewer plugs, tools. So that's relatively staying the same as last year. Moving on to the treatment plant, the operating expenditures for that. For equipment, we have an increase of $8,000. The equipment is funding for major expenses such as pumps at the wastewater plant, plumbing materials, seals for pumps, sensors, PLCs, VFDs for our pumps, UPSs for our backups for our MCCs, meters for like flow meters and other heavy equipment if needed. That went up just due to the price of the cost of all materials have seemed to go up, and most of the material is metal.
Obviously, spending that much on infrastructure that is potentially not the best fit for the library, and the library space is an
Tyler, what was that? That was like a overfeed? Oh. Okay, we should be good. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right.
Zoom.
Yeah, another increase is our Genbacher maintenance of $5,000 for that. So our Genbacher is our biogas generator at the plant where we produce a majority of our own power, and we recover heat from that to heat our digesters as well. That is an increase just due to the fact that the parts for that keep going up and up, and it's very proprietary. We can't really get anything other than GE equipment for that. There's an increase in $90,000 for our chemical budget. This is kind of a conservative increase that I have in there because prices for chemicals for phosphorus removal and polymer have gone up. Our polymer has gone up 40% in the last year. So at the same time that we're reducing chemicals more and more, they keep going up in price. So I have that increase in there. I'm hoping to be below that, but we're really at the mercy of what the chemical reps can provide us for prices. An increase in $5,000 for our UV lighting. That's our disinfection system. That's another proprietary system, a Trojan Canada product that you can't really get parts anywhere else other than for that company. Those prices for ballasts, lights, and lamps and crystals keep going up, so there's an increase in that. The electric is predicted to go up as well, just because the prices for electric and gas just continue to rise, so we want to account for that. Natural gas up $10,000 due to the fact that our value for our BTUs keep going up. They're substantially higher than they were a couple of years ago. Hopefully by running our generator harder and creating our own power, we can keep those prices down, but I just want to account for that. The generator has been rebuilt this year. The gas conditioning skid for the generator has now been rebuilt, so we're hoping to have a good year with that system of up and running and saving us money. But it's unpredictable, so we have to account for that. Everything else at the plant is relatively the same as years before. On the next page, for contract payments, that's budgeted the same as last year, $80,000. This will be used for contract services for engineers to look at some of our upgrades that we need to make before 2025 for phosphorus compliance. Some of the different things are adding chemical storage for this and just complete optimization of the plant to meet our new limits. The lift station budget is relatively the same as far as the amount of wages going into that will be the same. Operating equipment should be very close to the same, barring no major setbacks and equipment failures. Sludge disposal is actually a little bit of a decrease for labor, and hopefully this is to account for the increased market of our biosolids. We're getting to the point where some farmers want to take that material, so they are taking and hauling it themselves. So this reduces the amount of time we have to spend on the pad to turn that material and keep drying it, and as well as if the pad gets too full, we have to haul it ourselves sometimes, and that drives up our costs. So as long as we can continue to have those farmers to take it, that'll save us some money. For wastewater outlay budget highlights this year, some of the things that we want to improve is replacing our Headworks grit pump. That pump that we have is over 30 years old now, and we have hardly touched it other than regular maintenance to it. A grit pump in wastewater is one of the hardest working pumps there are. It's constantly pumping abrasive material. So that pump has served us well, and it's in dire need of replacement. We have two and so one got replaced a few years ago, and the one that needs replacing is virtually unrunnable right now. We could use it in an emergency, but it's in really bad shape. I budgeted $38,000 for our influence screener to be rebuilt. We had one rebuilt this
Budgeted
year,
38,000.
and
Our influence
That's-
screener be rebuilt.
okay, that's another item in our Headworks building that has not been touched for about approximately 30 years. It was put in the 90s, and it's overdue for an overhaul. So we got one rebuilt right now, and that one's running and operating well. So, budgeted another $80,000 for our influent channels. In our Headworks building, our influent channels are starting to corrode very badly due to hydrogen sulfide, which is kind of a natural process that happens in wastewater. So it's eating away and etching the concrete really bad, and it's going to cause issues for as far as structure and safety and operation of that building. And it's going to be quite a feat to bypass the influent water and repair some of those channels. So we did budget money last year for it too, and this is to continue on that to try to make some headway on that. One of the big ones we have is $275,000 for the replacement of the Dewey Lift Station MCC. So the Dewey Lift Station, which is right across from the hospital by the river, is one of our biggest lift stations, and that has two 200-horse pumps in that station, which a station that size should have 3 pumps, but we only have 2, and there's not enough room for 3, so we don't have much redundancy there. The MCC hasn't been touched as far as a major upgrade since it's been put in. We believe it's from the 80s. We've had contractors do some work when needed, and they basically tell me it's a dumpster fire, and it's starting to become a safety hazard, and some of the controls that it doesn't have for safety. And this is one of those items that it's working fine, but eventually it's going to get to the point where something's going to break and nobody will be able to fix it because most of the things are obsolete. And lastly, $10,000 to finish sealing our drying pad where we lay down our sludge. So last year we budgeted money for it. We were able to seal off about 70% of that pad, and the remaining $10,000 should complete the sealing of that pad. So that's about all I have for any new information and increased costs. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions or comments? Think we're good then?
All right, thank you.
Derek, appreciate your time. Shane?
So I guess just Ryan Hartman's here from the Human Resource Department. Kyle Kearns is here representing the Community Development, Planning and Economic Development Department. And Tyler Mickelson's in the back there. He can speak to IT. I don't have them set up to do a formal presentation, but if you want to take one at a time and if you have any questions for them, might be the easiest.
So Kyle, with the community development, does anybody have any specific questions? Did you want to share any broad points with us?
Only other than it's, I think, slightly increased by about 5,000, primarily due to wages and benefits. That's all.
All right. Questions or comments? Moving on to human resources, Ryan? Broad points you want to bring out?
Thank you. No, I don't think there's any major points. A lot of in the operating expenditures are, more of fixed costs as they pertain to other departments and pre-employment and the standard DOT random drug testing, those types of things. So we reduced the training request down by 20,000 from last year. To put it at 10,000 for ongoing, and I think those are probably the main points, unless there's any questions.
Questions or comments for human resources? Sherry?
Thank you. Ryan, can you just briefly, I was kind of going back over the FIT part of the agenda, and I know it had indicated that not only was it for the non-work related therapy as it is for work-related therapy, but did you say that part of that was utilized by the fire department and police department as well? Or is it?
As far as the current program, Sherry?
Yes.
So yes, it's open to, that program is utilized currently for all employees at the city, including fire and police department.
But as far as the quantitative fit testing and that's specific to the fire department budget, it's not part of that budget or applied to that purpose.
Correct. The testing and validation is not part of the current program. That would be included in the new 2023 budget for the police and fire departments. Yep.
And so in the fire department budget, it lists the quantitative fit testing as well. Is that completely different? We're not duplicating
That's a great question. We had the same thing. My understanding is the validation testing and components, which I think we approximately came out to around $2,000 for police and fire in total, would then be allocated to those departments of PD and fire.
Okay. And so the motion that had been made was to approve $10 an hour at $120 an hour to perform non-work related therapy for employees that's outside of health insurance rates. And as from the service dates from January to August 31st, 185 hours were utilized for non-work related therapy. And those are at the old rates of the $90. But we approved, tentative up to 10 hours at $120 an hour, which is about $62,000. Is that correct?
I believe at $10 an hour at 48 weeks out of the year, which is what they schedule by, we would come in at about $59,000 for the year. The 2022 budget is currently projected at the $62,000. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ryan. Tyler, IT department?
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions, or do you want me to kind of go through it a little bit, or?
If you can go through it a
Highlight.
little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, just minor decreases in GIS licensing. That's just an increase every 3 years that we see. I do have a couple increases in hardware for our servers. I've done the math. We've seen increases in pricing over the last year and a half, 2 years in everything that we buy, so that kind of reflects what we've seen. Also an increase in Microsoft licensing this year, which honestly could go up. We're kind of in the middle of discovery of every so often you do an audit with Microsoft and they tell you how much you owe basically. And we're in the middle of that, so I'm hopeful that that will cover it, but you know, depending upon what they see, you know, that may actually increase. But other than that, try to keep everything pretty flat. Concerns, questions?
Sherry?
Thank you. We all know with cybersecurity and such is getting worse in today's world. Do you feel that, I mean, not that saying that we want to give more money, but is it adequate of what you have in your budget to support that so we weren't compromised at all?
You know, it's hard to say. There's no foolproof answer. Or, you know, if we spent $500,000 just on hardware, we could still get hacked tomorrow. You know, someone clicking on the wrong email. So it's kind of hard to say, you know, what's the dollar amount? We could spend as much as we wanted, and still, I mean, look at Pepsi. You know, they just got hacked. You know, the federal government sometimes has an issue with that. So it's really tough to say, you know, is it adequate? Could I use more money? Absolutely. But we're doing what we can with what we have, and you know, we're doing a pretty good job, I would say. So.
And server-wise, I know some of the ARPA stuff I was going through, and I know that was a request from you. How is that?
So there's a couple high dollar items coming down the line that are at the 5 to 6, 7 year mark, and with some of the ARPA money, that would help to alleviate some of those costs that would be seen that we would normally take care of with our replacement fund. But you know, we've got about 2 servers that are, you know, in the 5-6 year range, and then our SAN, which is our storage for our network, is in the same amount of timeline. So, and that's about a probably $50,000 to $70,000 price point. So that some of those monies would be nice to have to kind of alleviate some of our replacement fund that we normally put money towards. So.
But some of that is being allocated to help build that fund for that replacement when it happens.
Right. Yeah. You know, it right now it could be used on a couple of the servers so that we would have money for the SAN, you know, something like that. So it's kind of a shell game, I guess. But you know, which expense to pay it with. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate your time.
Motion to adjourn, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, at this time, we have a motion. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? So moved. Meeting closes at 6:35.